What happens when the man who owns 20 distribution warehouses puts on a fake beard and steel-toe boots to work his own loading dock? Nathaniel Foster had inherited the company from his father 5 years ago. He was 39, clean-cut, and usually spent his days in meetings and behind spreadsheets. But lately, complaints had been trickling in slow deliveries, damaged packages, and a few whispers of unsafe practices at one of the warehouses. Warehouse 12, out in the industrial part of Dayton, Ohio, had the worst numbers. Orders processed slower than any other location. Turnover was high, and yet the manager's reports always painted a rosy picture. Nathaniel had never met most of the staff there. It was one of the newer facilities, added a year before he took over, so he made a call. Hired a Hollywood-grade makeup artist, grew out stubble, dyed his hair, and showed up on a Monday morning with a fake name, Nick Finley. A supposed new hire, temporary, part of a company pilot program to test out entry-level training. No one suspected a thing. "Hey, Nick, right?" said a thin man with a clipboard and a permanent 5 o'clock shadow. "I'm Kyle, I'm the shift supervisor, you'll be on Dock 3 today." "Follow me?" "Sure thing," Nathaniel said, keeping his voice rougher than usual. He adjusted the cap over his darkened hair and followed Kyle past rows of pallets and forklifts. The warehouse was loud, not just from machines but from tension. Workers barely talked. Most just nodded or kept their eyes down. Nathaniel caught a few tired glances. The air smelled stale, mixed with diesel and something sharp, a chemical bite. Kyle introduced him to Jamal, a tall guy in his 20s who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Jamal's solid, he'll show you the ropes." "Don't get in the way and you'll be fine." Jamal gave a tired half-smile. "You ever driven a pallet jack?" "Nope, first time." "All right," Jamal grunted. "Let's keep it simple then." They worked in silence for a while. Jamal showed him how to scan labels, stack boxes, and avoid getting crushed by forklifts. Sweat dripped down Nathaniel's back. The work was hard, real hard. But what stuck out most wasn't the labor, it was how little support the workers got. No signs of the manager, no check-ins. No water station in sight. Around noon, Jamal leaned against the bay door and wiped his forehead. "You get a break?" "Not yet," he laughed quietly. "Kyle probably forgot or didn't care. Happens." Nathaniel nodded. "You guys short-staffed?" "Yeah, 2 guys just quit last week. Said they got tired of being treated like machines." Jamal glanced down the dock. "But we ain't getting any help. Kyle just says work faster." Nathaniel didn't reply. He followed Jamal to the break room, cramped, barely air-conditioned. The vending machine was broken. A few guys sat silently, scrolling through their phones. A woman in her 40s, wearing a back brace, winced as she sat down. Back on the floor, Kyle barked orders from a clipboard but didn't touch a single box. He yelled at a younger guy, Devin, for taking too long unloading a truck. Devin looked like he was about to pass out. Nathaniel kept his cool, but inside something twisted. Mid-afternoon, Kyle told Nathaniel to help unload a truck parked in the far right corner of the lot. "Dock 6. Just open it and start moving stuff in. Don't touch anything in the back half, though." "Got it. Why not the back?" Nathaniel asked. Kyle's eyes narrowed. "Because I said so." Nathaniel walked to Dock 6. The sun beat down. He pulled the truck's latch and lifted the door. The front half was normal pallets of canned goods and paper products, but the back half, he froze. There were drums, unmarked. One was cracked. A harsh chemical smell hit him hard, worse than earlier. He backed away, coughing. No labels, no hazmat signs. Jamal walked up behind him. "Whoa, you smell that?" "Yeah," Nathaniel said, keeping his voice steady. "You know what that stuff is?" Jamal shook his head. "Been there for weeks. Kyle says don't touch it." Nathaniel closed the truck fast and pulled the latch down hard. Something was seriously wrong. He went back to work, but he couldn't stop thinking about it. Unmarked drums, leaking. Stored near food products, no safety signs. No one checking, and Kyle knew. Nathaniel's hands trembled as he stacked another box. He'd come here to find out why the warehouse was underperforming. But now something deeper was going on, something dangerous. Tuesday started colder. Nathaniel zipped up the company-issued hoodie and stepped into the warehouse just before dawn. The air inside was still thick with the same suffocating mix of exhaust and chemical residue. The cracked drum in the back of the trailer hadn't been moved, no warning signs, no containment. It was as if it didn't exist. Jamal didn't show up that morning. "Where's Jamal?" Nathaniel asked the man sorting shipping manifests near the office door. The guy gave a shrug without looking up. "Called out, said he was dizzy all night." Nathaniel clenched his jaw. "Is anyone checking on him?" "Not unless he's bleeding." Kyle stepped out of the office, chewing a breakfast sandwich like he had no care in the world. "Nick, take Dock 4 this morning. That truck's a mess. I want it cleared before lunch." Nathaniel nodded without a word and headed to the truck. The boxes were stacked in a way that made the load unstable, leaning too far to the left, with the heavier stock on top. Whoever packed it was either rushed or didn't care. He started from the side, slow and methodical, trying not to cause a collapse. By mid-morning, he noticed something strange. A young woman, maybe 19, 20 at most, was struggling to drag a pallet across the floor with a broken jack. Her face was red from exertion, and she kept glancing around nervously. "You all right?" Nathaniel asked, walking over. She startled. "I'm fine, just this jack's messed up." "I told Kyle 2 days ago, but he said there's no budget for new ones." Nathaniel crouched and inspected the handle. It was cracked at the base, barely holding together. The wheels were stiff with grime. "What's your name?" "Marcy. You knew, week and a half." He looked at the calluses on her hands. "You tell anyone else about the jack?" Marcy hesitated. "I don't. I try not to complain." She pulled the pallet an inch and winced. That was enough. Nathaniel walked toward the office. Kyle was leaning over the desk, watching something on his phone with the volume low. He didn't look up. Nathaniel waited. Nothing. "Hey," Nathaniel said firmly. Kyle finally turned. "What?" "That jack Marcy's using is unsafe. She can't even steer it." "Yeah, I know. I put in a request for replacements last month. Didn't get approved." "Then she shouldn't be using it." Kyle rolled his eyes. "You been here for what, 2 days? Everyone pulls their weight. We don't have spares lying around." Nathaniel didn't respond. He walked back, took the jack from Marcy, and switched with her. "You take my pallet," he said. "Yours can wait." She gave him a grateful nod and moved off toward Dock 2. By noon, Nathaniel's back was on fire. The broken jack made every step harder, but he pushed through it. When he finally limped back into the break room, the air was filled with faint murmurs. A few workers were crowding around Devin, who had his foot up on a chair and was untying a soaked work boot. "Dropped a box of bleach," he explained. "Went straight through the cardboard." Nathaniel stepped closer and saw the raw skin where the chemical had splashed. "You okay?" he asked. Devin looked up. "Burns like hell. Kyle told me to rinse it with water and get back out there." "Did you fill out an incident report?" Devin laughed bitterly. "He said it wasn't worth the paperwork." Nathaniel stood still for a moment. Then he walked out past the office and out into the lot. He pulled out his personal phone and called the regional safety officer. Left a message. His voice was calm but deliberate. "This is Nathaniel Foster. I'm at Warehouse 12 in Dayton. There's a chemical exposure injury. It wasn't logged, and the manager discouraged reporting. I want a full audit here immediately." He hung up, shoved the phone back into his hoodie pocket, and returned inside. By the time he made it back to the floor, Kyle was calling everyone over. "Listen up," he said, voice raised. "We got corporate safety stopping by tomorrow. No idea why. So everything needs to look clean. That means no pallets blocking lanes, no boxes on the floor, and for God's sake, wear your vests." Nathaniel watched the room. No one spoke. A few glanced at each other. One guy, older with a limp, leaned against a pallet like he needed it to keep standing. Kyle turned to Nathaniel. "You, Nick, you know how to drive a fork?" "No." "Then you're on sweep duty. Clean under every bay. I want it spotless." The broom he handed over was cracked halfway down the handle and tied back together with duct tape. Nathaniel stared at it, then got to work. Dust, wrappers, bits of broken plastic, all shoved into a bucket with a bent rim. He worked in silence while Kyle watched from the office window, sipping soda. Late afternoon, a truck pulled into Dock 8. The driver stepped out and handed a clipboard to one of the floor workers. But instead of unloading, the driver leaned in and said something quiet. The worker tensed up and waved Nathaniel over. "This guy wants to talk to a supervisor," he said. Nathaniel walked over. "You work here?" the driver asked. "Yeah." "What's up?" "I've been dropping off here twice a week for 3 months. That trailer, the one in the corner, it's not supposed to have chemical drums in it. That's food-grade freight. I flagged it last time, but Kyle said it was none of my business." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "You report it?" "Not yet. But if that stuff leaks into the wrong pallets, someone's gonna get sick, or worse." "I'll make sure it gets handled," Nathaniel said. That night he stayed past shift end, swept again. Then walked the warehouse perimeter, checking inventory tags. He looked at the cameras. None pointed toward Dock 6. He went into the restroom. The mirror was cracked and the soap dispenser was empty. A guy walked in behind him, didn't even glance over, just stood at the sink. "You ever work somewhere else before this?" Nathaniel asked. "Yeah." "Columbus facility." "Why'd you leave?" "Didn't, got transferred." "Why?" "Was told they needed people here more, but it's worse, way worse." He left without saying anything else. Nathaniel stood there for a while. The cracked mirror reflected a man with dirt on his face and calluses forming under his gloves. He looked tired. Not just physically, something deeper. The next morning started with a surprise. A white SUV pulled into the lot just after sunup. Out stepped the regional safety officer and an inspector from the Department of Transportation. They walked straight to the office. Kyle's voice could be heard from across the floor. "What the hell is this?" The inspector didn't answer, just handed over a clipboard and stepped inside. For the next hour, they walked every inch of the facility. Took photos, checked labels, asked questions. Nathaniel kept his head down, moved boxes, answered when asked. Then they reached Dock 6. The inspector opened the trailer, pulled out a flashlight, and froze. He climbed inside. The safety officer followed. A few minutes later, they both came out, faces tight. The safety officer turned to Kyle, who had followed them reluctantly. "You didn't log this." "I didn't know what it was." "Then why tell your staff not to touch it?" Kyle didn't answer. "You're done here," she said. The inspector nodded. "We'll be filing a report with the state, and I'll be recommending immediate temporary shutdown of this dock." Kyle turned red. "You can't do that." "I can," she said, "and I just did." Nathaniel stood off to the side, watching. A forklift beeped in the background. Somewhere a box fell. No one moved to pick it up. The safety officer looked around. "We need a senior rep from corporate here. Now." Nathaniel stepped forward. "I'm here," he said. "Name's Nathaniel Foster." The silence after that was total. Workers froze. A few mouths opened, then shut again. Kyle's face drained of color. "You're joking," he said. "No," Nathaniel said. "I'm the owner. And I've seen enough." The safety team stayed for hours, combing through logs, inspecting storage conditions, and photographing the trailer that had held the leaking chemical drums. Nathaniel remained on the floor, still dressed like a laborer, helping move the last of the morning shipments with the rest of the crew. No one talked much after his reveal. Some looked at him with wide eyes and caution. Others just kept working, unsure what to make of it all. He didn't push them. Not yet. By early afternoon, the regional safety officer stepped out of the office with a clipboard and walked over to Nathaniel. "We've shut down Dock 6 entirely," she said. "The drums are being removed by a contracted hazmat team this evening. Whatever was in them, it's not labeled, and that alone is a federal violation. I've also forwarded everything to the state environmental agency." Nathaniel nodded once. "Thank you. What about Kyle?" "He's been escorted off-site. We'll be conducting interviews with the staff over the next 48 hours to build a formal incident timeline." "Understood." She paused. "You'll need someone to take over in the interim." "I know." Once she left, Nathaniel walked toward the break room. A few workers sat scattered around the room, picking at lunches or staring at the vending machine that still wasn't working. No one spoke when he entered. "I need someone to step up," he said quietly, standing by the doorway. "Not a manager. Just someone who knows this place better than I do and can keep things running while I figure out what happens next." A tall man in his 50s looked up slowly. He had gray at his temples and worn-out gloves tucked in his belt. "I've been here since the place opened," he said. "Name's Reggie. I'm not trying to impress anyone, but I know how to keep the trucks moving without getting people hurt." Nathaniel nodded. "That's all I want. You okay with keeping it steady until we bring someone in? I'll do what I can, but we're short 3 people this week. One more's out with a back issue." "You want things to move, we need bodies, not just promises." "You'll have both," Nathaniel said. "Starting now." He walked out and found the operations terminal near the office. The login still worked. He pulled up the staffing schedules, scanned the shifts, and clicked into the HR system. Within the hour, he arranged for a mobile staffing unit to send 3 temporary workers to help cover the floor over the next several days. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was something. By the time he returned to the dock, Reggie had already reorganized the shifts. He was calm but firm, giving clear tasks and checking that everyone had what they needed. He didn't yell, he didn't hover. He just worked. Nathaniel pulled another broken jack aside and made a list of damaged equipment. He included the one Marcy had used and another with a wheel that screeched every time it turned. The sun was angling low when he saw Jamal walking slowly through the side door. He moved like someone still fighting off dizziness. "You shouldn't be here," Nathaniel said. "I can't afford to miss another day." Nathaniel motioned for him to walk with him toward the loading dock stairs. "You were exposed to something. You need medical clearance before you're back on the floor." "No one said that before. I'm saying it now." Jamal leaned against the railing. "You think they'll pay me if I'm out?" "They will. I'll make sure of it." Jamal looked at him hard, as if trying to measure whether that was another empty promise. "You were the only one who didn't treat me like I was invisible," Nathaniel said. "You showed me how things work here. The least I can do is make sure you're not paying for someone else's mistake." Jamal gave a slight nod and turned to leave. At shift change, Nathaniel gathered the crew near the back of the warehouse. The sun was down and the air was cooling, but the inside of the building still held the heat from the day. "I'm not here to make a speech," he said. "But I saw things these past few days that I can't ignore. Unsafe conditions, broken equipment, no support when things went wrong." "That stops now." Some people nodded, others just watched. "I know trust doesn't get rebuilt in a day, but I'm going to be coming back, and not just for inspections. I'm going to show up, work beside you, and fix this place from the floor up." No one clapped, no one cheered. But a few faces softened. A few stood up straighter. That night, after the last truck was locked and the last manifest signed, Nathaniel stayed behind. He walked the perimeter again, this time not as a hidden observer, but as a leader trying to make sense of what had gone wrong. He found Reggie near the maintenance shelf, organizing tools. "You didn't have to stay," Nathaniel said. "I don't mind," Reggie replied. "This place needed a shake. People were tired of yelling into the void." "Why didn't you say something sooner?" "We all did. Just never to someone who listened." Nathaniel nodded. "That's on me. You can fix it. Just don't disappear again." "I won't." As they walked out together, Reggie locked the door behind them. Outside, the lot was quiet. The lights above the dock buzzed faintly, casting washed-out shadows across the pavement. Nathaniel looked at the line of trucks, still and silent. He'd come looking for inefficiency. What he found was neglect, not just of equipment but of people. Tomorrow wouldn't be perfect. Neither would next week, but they'd start. And this time he'd be right there with them. 2 weeks later, Nathaniel returned to Warehouse 12. This time, not in disguise, not to observe, but to follow through. The facility felt different, not quieter, not smoother, but more alert. Like air shifting before a storm. The temporary workers he'd sent were still on site, 3 of them, rotating shifts, helping to fill the worst staffing gaps. Not a permanent fix, but enough to stop the bleeding. He walked through the front with his ID badge visible. No theatrics, no need for it now. Reggie met him inside, clipboard in hand, safety vest zipped up to the collar. "Morning," Nathaniel said. Reggie checked something off and motioned toward the far end of the building. "We're still behind on outbound. That's our biggest choke point now. Not enough trained hands on inventory verification. I'll jump in." "You sure?" "I didn't come here to watch." Nathaniel grabbed a scanner and joined the line. Every 10th pallet had something wrong, mislabeled, half shrink-wrapped, or tagged with the wrong dock number. The upstream issue was clear: poor training at the intake point. He flagged it mentally. A few workers gave him curious glances, some nodded, others didn't acknowledge him at all. That was fine. Trust was earned over time, not handed over in a handshake. After 2 hours, he stepped aside and found Reggie near the dispatch desk. "We need to fix intake," Nathaniel said. "You got someone who knows how to train?" Reggie tapped the clipboard. "Not since Carlos left. He used to run orientation, but Kyle phased him out last fall." "Where's Carlos now?" Transferred to Cincinnati warehouse. "Said he couldn't take the tension here. Think he'd come back? You'll have to ask him." Nathaniel made a note. Then he walked the perimeter again, this time with a printed list of every remaining equipment defect. He stopped at each pallet jack and cart, inspecting them personally. He didn't delegate it. He wanted to see every bolt and wheel. Marcy passed him near Dock 2, carrying a clipboard and directing a new temp toward the packaging station. She looked more confident now, focused, faster, in rhythm. She caught his eye and nodded once. He caught up with her by the shipping cage. "You've taken on more responsibility," he observed. "Someone had to. You want to stay on long term, if I can keep moving up. We've got an entry-level supervisor program opening up. You'll need to pass a training course. It's not easy." "I'm not asking for easy." He handed her a printed application. "You'll need a recommendation from Reggie, but I'd back it." By early afternoon, the regional HR manager arrived. Together, they assembled the remaining crew for a short meeting in the break area. This time, Nathaniel stood in front of them not just as the owner, but as someone who had worked beside them, sweated in the same boots, and seen what had been ignored. "I won't waste your time," he began. "I saw things here that violated not just policy but basic decency. That's over. From today forward, safety is non-negotiable, leadership will be accountable, and every person on this floor will be treated with the respect they've earned." A man near the vending machine raised his hand. "We've heard that before, then they forget we exist." Nathaniel didn't flinch. "You won't be forgotten, because I'll be back, regularly, unannounced. And I'm bringing people with me who are paid to fix what's broken, not cover it up." He turned to the HR manager. "This facility will now have its own safety advocate on site, independent from management. Any worker can speak to them without going through a supervisor. That person reports directly to my office." He looked back at the crew. "If someone ever tells you not to report an injury or refuses to log a hazard, they won't be here the next day. Period." Another worker, a woman with tape burns on her fingers, asked the next question. "What about equipment? We're losing time on broken jacks and busted printers." Nathaniel nodded. "We've approved the full replacement order. Every damaged unit will be scrapped. New gear arrives next week. Until then, only the safe units stay in circulation. Anything else gets locked out." He paused. "And I want to be clear on something. If anyone sees discrimination, racial, gender, age, anything like that, you bring it straight to me or the advocate. I don't care who it is. They'll be terminated immediately. No warnings." The crowd was quiet, then a slow ripple of nods moved through the room. No applause, just a shift in posture, people no longer bracing for the next blow. After the meeting, Nathaniel met with the floor leads in the office. Kyle's old desk was empty. He sat at the conference table across from them. "You've all seen the worst of what this place became," he said. "Now I need you to help it become something better." One of the leads, a woman named Tanya, leaned forward. "Can we get a say in how shifts are scheduled? Half the burnout comes from being thrown into random rotations. You'll get input. We're piloting a new scheduling tool next month, but until then I want shift requests submitted directly to HR, no middle filter." Another lead, Victor added, we also need better onboarding. New hires don't know what to do half the time, that's not their fault. I'm working on bringing Carlos back. He built the last program that actually worked. Until then, I'll authorize overtime for anyone who volunteers to mentor. Victor nodded slowly. That's a start. Nathaniel stood. I'll be back in 5 days. I expect to see progress. Not perfection, just movement in the right direction. He left the office and walked toward the outgoing dock. The sun was starting to fall across the parking lot, casting long shadows through the overhead doors. He stopped by Jamal, who had returned after medical clearance and was now sorting completed manifests. You good? Nathaniel asked. Better than I've been in a while. You ever consider taking on more responsibility? Jamal looked hesitant. Didn't think I'd get the chance. You've got the attitude, you just need the tools. Apply for the supervisor training, you've earned a shot. Jamal nodded slowly but with certainty. Yeah, I will. Outside, the air was cooling. Trucks rumbled in the distance, tires grinding across gravel. Nathaniel stood by the dock edge, watching the forklift shift its last load of the day. The work wasn't done. Not by a long shot. But the rot that had gone unseen was out in the open, now exposed, documented, and being cut away piece by piece. And for the first time since he inherited the company, Nathaniel felt something shift. Not in the numbers, not in the charts, but in the people. The ones who carried the weight. The ones who showed up when no one thanked them. The ones who stayed because they believed it could get better. And now, finally, it would.